So the story today is the King Cobra and cowardice. These are true tales of my African adventures. May this inspire you, deter you, caution you, and above all, entertain you. I am not given to acts of cowardice. However, I succumbed once, and only once, in a very small way, to this lowly outcast emotion. This harrowing event took place in the city of Windhoek, Namibia, Southwest Africa as it was then known. We had planned a large exhibition at the Windhoek Trade Fair, and this year we had a new and special attraction at our snake park, an Indian king cobra between 4 and 5 meters long, a true king of snakes. This is the largest venomous snake in the world, reaching up to 6 meters and capable of killing an elephant with a single bite. I had painstakingly raised this king cobra from a young 1 meter long specimen over a number of years. His temperament was disgusting. A more bad-tempered, bad-mannered, calculating, downright dangerous snake I had never had the misfortune to own. King cobras eat only other snakes as a rule. The locals used to bring us all the snake roadkill in the vicinity for us to freeze as king cobra fast food. Nobody who worked at the snake park was untouched in one way or another by this mindless snake. It is the only snake to have ever chased me with intent to commit grievous bodily harm, and I recall a time when I was forced to dive through a narrow window to escape a concerted attack launched at me by the cobra. I had left the window open in its cage just in case of such an event whilst cleaning out its water bowl. I landed on cement brick paving and scraped and thudded to a skin-rending halt. When I looked back, the snake was reared up more than a meter, peering through the window, wondering where I had disappeared to so quickly, like I had just spoilt his fun. The snake one day actually succeeded in his primary objective, which was to bite me at all cost. His enclosure needed a spring cleaning. We rarely removed him physically for enclosure cleaning, as it was always such a drama. Instead, we found that throwing a large sack over him seemed to work well. He would curl up under the sack and enjoy a nap. He would have this nap in seclusion, of course, while we quickly and nervously went about our work. On this particular day, I performed the sack trick, and once he had calmed and the sack stopped moving, in inverted commas, I climbed in and proceeded to clean. Our cleaning staff were not allowed near him, as we knew we would be regularly hiring new staff if we did, if you know what I mean. I had been brushing some dirt into a pan when a movement caught my eye. I was on all fours. I looked up. This, I thought, would be an excellent time to faint. The king cobra, who was usually quite noisy about things, had silently emerged from his sack blanket and was standing, hood spread, towering well over 5 meters above me, with, as usual, his mouth partly open to ensure he looked as evil and as menacing as he possibly could. I was speechless. I knew at any moment his monotonously usual attack would begin. I was quick for my size. I twisted and shot bolt upright, facing this deceptively cunning king. He lunged forward, and I performed a move that would make a prima ballerina proud. He missed me, mainly because I was no longer where I had been a second ago. I couldn't keep this up for long, as the law of averages would dictate that he would soon meet with success. I couldn't reach the door as he was in front of it. 2 more lunges and I realized that I needed a plan, fast. I had to offer him something to bite, preferably not me. I lifted my boot in self-defense and he gladly took the bait. He bit the boot with the determination of one who has finally succeeded in a long-suffering quest. I watched as apparently endless venom flowed over my boot and dripped onto the floor, leaving a small pool of venom on the concrete base of the cage. As I moved to the door, he was dragged behind me, still clinging to my boot. I kicked him off as I exited the door. We soon built him a new enclosure, which was safer to work in. But alas, with this snake, the drama never ended. Back to Namibia and the trade fair. As with other trade fairs in the country, we were consistently the main attraction. I remember the day that Joshua Nkomo, the political leader of Namibia, with his longtime friend Kenneth Kaunda, a well-known African president, came to attend one of my demonstrations. The massive attendant bodyguards looked more menacing than the snakes. The guests of honor were a happy pair and enjoyed the show before thanking me politely. This was an excellent start. We had large crowds and the atmosphere was good. The Namibians are an agreeable bunch. I had good friends here, and they knew how to party. It is hard to find a greater party animal than a Namibian on a good night. Well, it was Friday night. The snake park shut its doors at 10 p.m. All snakes were checked, secured, and watered. The King Cobra was in a deep, narrow pit dug for effect and was coiled snugly on a bed of grass, looking to all intents and purposes utterly bored with the consistent peering into his temporary enclosure. A black mesh covered the pit to secure him. We were tired but anxious to spend at least some time consuming Windhoek lager beer to the sound of German music with friends and strangers alike. Such fun we had. Saturday morning greeted our lightly throbbing heads with the reality of the busiest day at the showgrounds. Many thousands of people from all reaches of Namibia would turn up today. It was time to prepare to meet the crowds. We arrived, opened up, cleaned and tidied, checked the demonstration area, checked the cages, and replenished the water. I was near the cash desk. I will never forget the moment I heard the following words. A voice from inside the park exclaimed, "I can't seem to see the King Cobra." I froze in my tracks. "Perhaps he's under the grass," I replied. There was a long pause. "No, he isn't," came the reply. "Are you absolutely sure?" I said. "Yes," came the reply. Armageddon. I was done for. 100 scenarios shot through my near-panicked mind. The gates to the showgrounds would open soon. 10,000 people would pour into the showgrounds, covering every corner of the turf. And my maniac King Cobra was loose, hiding somewhere on the showgrounds. He would most likely see each new visitor as me, his archenemy, and plan his next attack. I stared blankly at his empty enclosure. I saw he had pushed a poorly secured section of mesh off its fixing point. I disbelievingly followed his track across the loose sand to the region beyond our exhibit stand onto hard ground. There were no more tracks to follow on this hard ground. Where was he? Only God knew. How does one search for a 14-foot-long King Cobra, whilst at the same time appearing not to do so? Answer: not easily. We searched in the most nonchalant manner we could. Each time we drew the attention of a curious onlooker, wondering why an ordinary visitor to the show would be peering up a drain pipe, under a car, into a bush, up a tree, etc. We would right ourselves and move on as if we had lost interest in some item of fleeting significance. I had had enough. Years and years of incidents in my life and at the snake parks and in our game capturing years and more had come to bear on me, and for a moment I felt weakened. I had made up my mind. I called everyone together and made an announcement. "Listen, guys," I said with scant eloquence. "This is serious. as if they didn't know. Now I am going into the bush. You will run the show. You will take care of the snake park. But not only this, you will find the snake, capture it, return it to its enclosure, secure it, and continue. No one is to be harmed. I will come out of the bush later in the day and return to find all is well and you have succeeded. Having issued my instructions, I turned and left. I drove 30 kilometers outside of Windhoek and went on a long, long walk under the clear Namibian sky. 4 or so hours later, I figured either someone has now been killed or is dying, or the snake is back home safely. One or the other. It was time to go back and face the music. I stopped some 40 meters from the snake park and observed for a while. Things seemed normal. No ambulance, no police, no helicopter, no shut snake park, people going in and coming out. Can it be, I thought? All is okay? I walked up to my chief demonstrator. Did you catch it? Yes. The story unfolded. Shortly after lunchtime, a stall holder was fetching something from his car when he thought he saw a snake under it. He popped over to the snake park a couple of 100 meters away and related his brief encounter with what he thought might have been a snake. Brian, an utterly fearless man, our chief demonstrator, quickly responded and retrieved our escapee from under the man's car. Almost no one saw the recapture. The snake had clearly been under the bonnet for the night and most of the day, but the heat of the sun had probably driven it down to the ground. Just at the time the car's owner walked past. The recapture was fairly routine and he was back in his pit. A disaster had been averted. I had never been so happy in my life to see a snake. Good on you, Brian. I can't recall shedding a tear when the cobra died a few years later.